The crystal champagne flute shattered against the marble floor of the Whitmore estate's grand ballroom, spraying glass across Maya's feet like frozen tears. She instinctively tightened her grip on 6-month-old Zoe, while her other arm cradled Lily against her chest, both babies startled awake by the sound. "You will not baptize those children with the Johnson name." Victoria Whitmore's voice cut through the post-christening celebration like a blade. Her perfectly coiffed silver hair didn't move as she advanced across the ballroom, her Chanel suit armor against any opposition. "They are Whitmores. They will be raised as Whitmores. And they certainly won't be dragging some urban surname through our family history." Maya felt the word Victoria didn't say hanging in the air between them. Urban. The polite Connecticut word for black. "Mother, please." Marcus stood near the bar, his whiskey glass trembling in his hand. At 34, her husband still couldn't stand up to the woman who'd controlled every aspect of his life. "We discussed this. Maya wants the girls to have both family names. Johnson Whitmore. It's hyphenated. It's modern." "Modern?" Victoria's laugh was sharp enough to cut. "Is that what we're calling it? I call it diluting 5 generations of Whitmore legacy with—" She caught herself, but her ice-blue eyes flicked over Maya with undisguised contempt. "With names that don't belong here." The christening had been Victoria's idea, or rather, her demand. Maya had wanted something small and intimate, just family and close friends. But Victoria Whitmore didn't do small. She'd invited 200 of Connecticut's elite to witness the baptism of her first grandchildren, to parade them through the estate like proof that the Whitmore line would continue, despite her son's unfortunate choice of wife. Maya had known what she was marrying into 3 years ago, when Marcus had nervously introduced her to his family. She'd seen the momentary freeze in Victoria's expression, the way Richard Whitmore's handshake had been half a second too brief. The whispered conversations that stopped when she entered rooms. But Marcus had promised things would get better, that his family just needed time to adjust. 3 years later, nothing had gotten better. It had only gotten more carefully hidden. "Mrs. Whitmore," Maya said, keeping her voice steady despite the rage building in her chest. "With respect, these are my daughters. The Johnson name is their heritage, their grandfather's, your father." Victoria spat the words like they tasted bitter. The man who couldn't even be bothered to attend his own grandchildren's christening, very involved, I'm sure. Maya felt the familiar ache in her chest. Her father's absence hurt more than she'd ever admit to these people. James Johnson had cut off contact when she'd married Marcus, had told her she was making a mistake, that the Whitmores would never truly accept her. She'd been so sure he was wrong, so convinced that love would be enough. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. "My father has his reasons," Maya said quietly, adjusting Lily, who was starting to fuss. "But that doesn't change the fact that my daughters deserve to know both sides of their family." Both sides. Victoria moved closer, and Maya could smell her Chanel No. 5, could see the calculation in her eyes. "Let me be perfectly clear about something, Maya. These children may have your coloring, but they will be raised as Whitmores. They will attend Whitmore schools, join Whitmore clubs, marry into Whitmore society. Whatever you think you're contributing to their upbringing, it's temporary." The ballroom had gone quiet. 200 guests in designer clothes and inherited jewelry watched the confrontation with the fascination people reserve for car accidents. Maya saw Marcus's cousin Jennifer recording on her phone, saw his prep school friends exchanging knowing looks, saw the other mothers, all white, all perfectly composed, whispering behind their hands. "Mother, that's enough." Marcus finally found his spine, though his voice still wavered. Maya is my wife. Zoe and Lily are our daughters. You don't get to dictate, don't I? Victoria turned on her son with practiced precision. Who owns this house, Marcus? Who controls the trust funds your daughters will need for their education? Who runs the foundation that bears your family name? She let each question land like a blow. You work for me, darling. Your wife has no job, no income, no resources of her own. So yes, I absolutely get to dictate how my grandchildren will be raised. Maya felt something cold settle in her stomach. It was true. She'd given up her career in art curation when Marcus had insisted she didn't need to work. That Whitmore wives focused on family and philanthropy. She'd been 6 months pregnant with the twins when she'd reluctantly resigned, believing Marcus when he said they'd be a team, that she'd never want for anything. Now she understood the trap that had been carefully constructed around her. Lily started crying in earnest, her small face scrunching up, and Zoe quickly joined her twin in a harmony of infant distress. Maya tried to soothe them, bouncing gently, murmuring comfort. But they could sense her tension. Perhaps you should take them to the nursery, Victoria said, her tone dismissive. They're disturbing the guests. They're 6 months old, Maya replied, her voice tight. They're supposed to cry. It's what babies do. Well-bred babies learn composure early. Victoria signaled to someone across the room, and Maya watched with growing horror as Carolyn Pierce glided toward them. Caroline, Marcus's ex-fiancée, the blonde, blue-eyed daughter of the Pierce banking dynasty, the woman Victoria had actually wanted Marcus to marry. Caroline had been invited to the christening. She's practically family, dear. And had spent the entire event making pointed comments about how difficult it must be to adjust to Whitmore standards. Victoria, darling, should I call the nanny? Caroline's voice dripped with false concern. I'm sure Maya must be exhausted. Being a mother to twins is so demanding, especially without proper preparation. The implication was clear. Proper meaning white. Proper meaning born into this world instead of crashing into it from outside. Maya looked at Marcus, silently begging him to defend her, to tell Caroline to mind her own business, to stand up to his mother for once. But he just stood there, whiskey in hand, looking between his wife and his family like a man watching his life split in two. Actually, Maya said, her voice steady despite the fury building inside her, I think I will take the girls upstairs. The air down here is making it hard to breathe. She turned to leave, and that's when Victoria's voice followed her across the marble floor, loud enough for every guest to hear. That's probably for the best. I'm sure they'll be more comfortable somewhere more suitable to their nature. Maya froze. The ballroom went silent. Even the string quartet stopped playing. She turned slowly, both babies now crying against her chest, and looked at Victoria Whitmore. Really looked at her. At the woman who'd spent 3 years making subtle digs about Maya's hair, her clothes, her background. The woman who'd insisted on a separate nursery wing because ethnic sensibilities about co-sleeping aren't appropriate in a Whitmore household. The woman who'd suggested, more than once, that the twins would be so beautiful if they'd just gotten their father's lighter features. Say that again, Maya said quietly. I want to make sure I heard you correctly. Victoria's smile was sharp as broken glass. I simply meant that perhaps the nursery, with its more casual atmosphere, would be. You meant that my black daughters don't belong in your white ballroom. Maya's voice rang clear and true. You meant that no matter what last name they carry, you'll always see them as less than. as other, as something to be managed and controlled and kept separate from your precious Whitmore legacy. Maya, let's not make a scene, Marcus said weakly, finally moving toward her. Mother didn't mean... Don't tell me what she meant, Maya's voice cracked. I've spent 3 years listening to what she means. I've swallowed every microaggression, every backhanded compliment, every suggestion that I'm not good enough for this family. But I won't let you do it to my daughters. Richard Whitmore finally stepped forward from where he'd been watching by the fireplace. Tall and distinguished at 68, he'd perfected the art of staying silent while his wife did the dirty work. Maya, you're upset. Understandably so. New motherhood is stressful, and I think everyone's emotions are running high. Why don't you take the girls upstairs to rest, and we can all discuss this more calmly later. The dismissal was gentle, but absolute. Take your outburst somewhere private. Don't embarrass us in front of our guests. Maya looked around the ballroom at 200 faces, watching her with everything from pity to contempt to carefully masked glee. She saw Jennifer still recording, saw Caroline whispering urgently to Marcus, saw Victoria's friends already forming the narrative they'd spread through their social circles. The black wife had a meltdown at her own daughter's christening. So emotional, so inappropriate. Poor Marcus, having to deal with that. You're right, Maya said finally. I am upset. And I do need to take my daughters somewhere they'll be safe. She walked toward the grand staircase, her heels clicking on marble that had been imported from Italy in 1923. Behind her, she heard the string quartet resume playing, heard the guests return to their champagne and canapes, heard her husband's mother already smoothing over the incident with practiced charm. But she also heard Marcus's footsteps following her, and for a moment, hope flickered. In the nursery, the separate wing that Victoria had insisted on, far from the main bedrooms, Maya laid the twins in their matching cribs. They'd finally stopped crying, exhausted from the emotional storm they'd sensed, but couldn't understand. Zoe's brown eyes, so like Maya's own, blinked sleepily. Lily's lighter eyes, inherited from Marcus's side, were already closing. Maya had spent months decorating this nursery, trying to infuse it with warmth despite Victoria's insistence on classic Whitmore aesthetics. She'd hung photographs of her own family, her mother who'd died when Maya was 12, her grandmother who'd raised her in Brooklyn, her father in better times before the rift. She'd added colorful quilts and books with black characters and little touches that said, "You belong to more than just this white world." Maya. Marcus entered quietly, closing the door behind him. I'm sorry. She didn't mean it the way it sounded. How did she mean it, Marcus? Maya turned to face him. How exactly did your mother mean it when she said my daughters would be more comfortable somewhere suitable to their nature? She's from a different generation. You know she struggles with the fact that her son married a black woman, with the fact that her grandchildren aren't white. Maya felt 3 years of swallowed words rising in her throat. You told me it would get better. You promised me your family would come around, that they just needed time. But it's gotten worse, Marcus. Every day, every comment, every look. And now she's starting on our daughters. Marcus ran his hand through his hair, a gesture Maya had once found endearing. Now, it just looked weak. I'll talk to her. I'll make her apologize. I don't want an apology. I want you to stand up to her. I want you to choose us over her. Maya moved closer, searching his face for the man she'd fallen in love with. Do you know how many times I've watched you let her disrespect me? How many dinners where she's made comments about my hair or my clothes or my background, and you just sat there. How many times I've had to smile and pretend I didn't notice. It's not that simple, Maya. This family, the business, the foundation, it's all connected. If I alienate my mother, then what? The realization was dawning with horrible clarity. You'll lose your trust fund, your position at Whitmore Industries, your place in Connecticut society. Maya felt tears burning behind her eyes. Is that what this has always been about? Keeping the peace so you don't lose your inheritance? That's not fair. None of this is fair. Maya's voice rose, and she fought to control it, not wanting to wake the twins. I gave up my career for you. I gave up my friends, my life in the city, my relationship with my father because he warned me this would happen. And for what? To be treated like hired help in my own husband's house? Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and Maya saw Caroline's name flash on the screen. Don't, she said quietly. Don't you dare answer that. He put the phone away, but the damage was done. Caroline was texting him, at his daughter's christening, and he hadn't immediately blocked her. How long? Maya asked. How long what? How long has she been texting you? How long have you been in contact with your ex-fiancé while your wife nurses your children? Maya, it's not like that. Caroline is just what? Just waiting for me to fail? Just ready to step in and be the proper Whitmore wife your mother always wanted? Maya laughed, but there was no humor in it. Does she know about the comments Victoria makes? Does she know how your family treats me? Or is she too busy planning your second wedding? You're being paranoid. The word landed like a slap. Paranoid. The word used to dismiss black women's real experiences, to gaslight them into questioning their own perceptions. Get out, Maya said quietly. What? Get out of this nursery. Go back to your party, your family, your ex-fiancé. But get away from me and my daughters. Maya, let's talk about this. Now! The word came out as a shout, and both twins startled awake, their cries filling the nursery. Marcus stood there for a long moment, looking between his wife and his daughters. Maya watched something cross his face. Guilt, regret, maybe even love. But he didn't stay. He turned and walked out, closing the door softly behind him. Maya sank into the rocking chair, gathering both crying babies into her arms. She held them close, breathing in their scent, feeling their small bodies warm against hers. I'm sorry, she whispered against their soft hair. I'm so sorry I brought you into this world, into this family that doesn't want you. Tears ran down her face, but she kept her voice steady. But I promise you something right now. I promise you'll never grow up thinking you're less than anyone. I promise you'll know your heritage, your strength, your worth. Through the nursery windows, Maya could see the gardens of the Whitmore estate stretching toward the sound. 10 acres of manicured perfection, built on old money and older prejudices. This had never been her home. It had been a prison with silk curtains and crystal chandeliers. Her phone buzzed on the changing table, a text from an unknown number. I saw what happened at the christening. The video's already going viral on Greenwich Society pages. You need to leave that house. Tonight. Call me when you're safe. J. Maya stared at the letter. Only one person would sign a text that way. Her father. The man who'd told her the Whitmores would never accept her. The man who'd warned her that old money families protected their bloodlines like medieval dynasties. The man she'd cut off 3 years ago because she'd been so sure love would conquer all. The man who, apparently, had been watching over her all along. Maya looked down at Zoe and Lily, both finally settling, their breathing sinking into the twin rhythm she'd come to recognize. They deserved better than this house, this family, this life where they'd always be outsiders in their own home. She picked up her phone and typed 3 words. Coming home. Help. The response came immediately. Car arriving in 30 minutes. Pack only what matters. Everything else, we'll replace. Maya stood, baby still in her arms, and looked around the nursery she'd so carefully decorated. At the photographs and quilts and books. At the evidence of 3 years spent trying to make a home in a place that would never accept her. 30 minutes to pack. 30 minutes to end a marriage and escape a family that saw her daughters as problems to be managed rather than children to be loved. From downstairs she heard laughter and music. The party continuing as if nothing had happened, as if their world hadn't just fractured beyond repair. Maya Johnson Whitmore laid her daughters back in their cribs one last time and began to pack. Maya worked with mechanical efficiency, her hands steady even as her mind raced. She pulled a large suitcase from the closet, the Louis Vuitton set Marcus had bought for their honeymoon to St. Lucia, back when she'd still believed in fairy tales. First, the essentials. Diapers, formula, the twins' favorite blankets. Zoe wouldn't sleep without the yellow one with elephants. Lily needed the blue striped one or she'd fuss for hours. Maya grabbed their medications, their stuffed animals, the breast pump she'd need if her supply didn't keep up with stress. Her own clothes came second. She didn't bother with the designer pieces Victoria had insisted she needed to represent the family properly. Instead, she grabbed jeans, comfortable shirts, her favorite sweater from college. The real clothes. The Maya clothes, not the Whitmore wife costume she'd been wearing for 3 years. The bedroom door opened without warning. Marcus stood in the doorway, his bow tie loosened, his face flushed from whiskey and embarrassment. "What are you doing?" His voice was quiet, but Maya heard the edge underneath. "Leaving." She didn't stop packing. "What does it look like?" "Maya, come on. Don't be dramatic. Mother will apologize tomorrow. She always does after she's had too much wine." "Does she?" Maya turned to face him. "Because I don't remember a single apology in 3 years. I remember excuses, justifications, and your father explaining that she didn't mean it that way. But I don't remember sorry." Marcus stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. "You can't just leave. We have a family. We have responsibilities." "You have a family." Maya continued packing, adding her laptop and the few pieces of jewelry that had belonged to her mother and grandmother. Nothing Marcus had given her. Nothing from the Whitmores. "I have 2 daughters who will grow up thinking racism is normal if I let them stay in this house one more day." "Racism?" Marcus's voice rose. "That's a hell of an accusation, Maya. My mother is many things, but she's not, what would you call it?" Maya spun around, her voice sharp. "What exactly would you call telling a black woman that her black daughters need to be kept somewhere suitable to their nature? What would you call 3 years of comments about my hair being urban and unprofessional? What would you call your mother suggesting I should straighten it for the Christmas card because we want the twins to be proud of their heritage, meaning your white heritage, not mine?" Marcus ran his hand through his hair again. "You're taking things out of context. You're being too sensitive." There it was. The phrase Maya had heard 100 times. Too sensitive. Too emotional. Too quick to see racism where it didn't exist. "Tell me something, Marcus." Maya zipped her suitcase closed with more force than necessary. "When you look at our daughters, do you see black children?" Or do you see Whitmore children who just happen to have darker skin? What kind of question is that? An honest one. Maya lifted Lily from her crib, the baby making small sounds of protest at being disturbed. Because if you see them as black, then you have to acknowledge that they will face racism, that they already are facing it, in their own home, from their own grandmother. But if you see them as Whitmore children who happen to have some melanin, then you can keep pretending that your family's behavior is just generational differences and not what it actually is. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Through the closed door, Maya could hear the party still going strong. Someone laughed, probably at a joke about the dramatic black wife who couldn't handle Whitmore society. "Where will you go?" Marcus finally asked. "Somewhere my daughters will be loved for exactly who they are." Maya picked up Zoe with her other arm, both twins now awake and alert, sensing the tension. Somewhere they won't have to prove they deserve to exist in their own family. "Maya, please. Let's talk about this tomorrow. You're exhausted, emotions are high. Don't make a decision you'll regret." "The only decision I regret is marrying you." The words came out cold and clear, and Maya watched them land like physical blows. "I regret believing you when you said your family would accept me. I regret giving up my career, my friends, my father, my entire life for a man who can't even stand up to his mother. I regret thinking love would be enough." A knock at the door interrupted them. Victoria's voice, sharp and commanding. "Marcus, our guests are asking for you. The Vanderbilts are leaving, and you need to say goodbye." Marcus looked between Maya and the door, and in that hesitation, Maya saw their entire marriage. When forced to choose, he would always choose them. Always choose the easy path, the safe path, the one that kept his trust fund and social standing intact. "Go," Maya said quietly. "Say goodbye to your guests. I'll say goodbye to your wife." "Maya, go, Marcus. You've already made your choice. Don't insult me by pretending otherwise." He left. Just like that, with his daughters watching from their mother's arms, Marcus Whitmore walked out to rejoin his party. Maya waited until his footsteps faded, then moved quickly. She strapped both twins into their car seats, the expensive ones Victoria had chosen, of course, top safety ratings, and carried them down the back stairs, the servants' stairs, the ones she'd learned to use to avoid uncomfortable encounters with Victoria's friends. The service entrance led to the mudroom, then to the garage. Maya's Mercedes SUV, another wedding present from Richard, probably to keep up appearances, sat gleaming between Marcus's Porsche and Victoria's Bentley. She loaded the car with practiced efficiency. Twin secured, diaper bag, suitcase, her purse with her phone showing 15 missed calls from Marcus already. As she backed out of the garage, the estate's security lights clicked on, bright and accusatory. Maya half expected someone to stop her, to demand she stay, to call the police and accuse her of kidnapping her own children. But the driveway remained empty, the house glowing with party lights, music and laughter drifting across the manicured lawns. Nobody noticed her leaving. Or maybe they were relieved. The guard at the gate, Harrison, who'd always been kind to her, who'd shown her pictures of his own grandchildren, saw the car seats and her determined expression and simply opened the gate. "Drive safe, Mrs. Whitmore," he said quietly. "Those babies are precious cargo." "Thank you, Harrison." Maya managed to smile. "And it's Johnson. Maya Johnson." "Yes, ma'am. Ms. Johnson. Be well." The gate closed behind her with a soft click, final as a coffin lid. Maya drove down the private road that led from the Whitmore estate to the public streets, watching the mansion shrink in her rearview mirror. 3 years of her life, gone in 30 minutes and a suitcase. Her phone rang. Marcus. She declined the call. Another call. Victoria. Declined. A text from an unknown number. Black sedan waiting at the intersection of Meadow Lane and Route 1. Driver's name is Thomas. He'll take you somewhere safe. Maya's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Her father's reach, his resources, his ability to make things happen. She'd forgotten how powerful James Johnson could be when he chose to be. The black sedan was exactly where the text promised. And Thomas turned out to be a man in his 50s with kind eyes and a professional demeanor that spoke of military training. He transferred the car seats to the sedan with expert efficiency while Maya held the twins. "Your father says to leave the Mercedes here, ma'am," Thomas said. "GPS tracking. We'll have it returned to the estate tomorrow." Of course. Maya hadn't even thought about tracking. She'd been focused on escape, not strategy. "Where are we going?" she asked as Thomas held the door open. "Somewhere the Whitmores can't follow," he replied. "Somewhere you'll have time to breathe and decide what comes next." The sedan pulled away from her abandoned Mercedes, and Maya watched Connecticut roll past the tinted windows. They drove south, away from Greenwich, away from the estate, away from the life she'd tried so desperately to make work. Lily started fussing, and Maya pulled her from the car seat, holding her close. Zoe watched with solemn eyes, as if she understood that everything was changing. "I'm sorry," Maya whispered to both of them. "I'm so sorry you have to learn this so early. That love isn't always enough. That some people will never see your worth." Tears ran down her face, but she kept her voice steady. "But I promise you this. You will never doubt that you're loved. You will never question whether you belong. Because you belong to me, and I belong to you, and that's enough." Her phone rang again, this time an unknown number with a 917 area code. "Manhattan." Maya answered. "Hello?" "Maya Catherine Johnson?" Her father's voice, deep and warm and achingly familiar after 3 years of silence. "Thank God you're safe." "Daddy." The word broke on a sob. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You were right about everything. Hush now. We'll talk about all that later." James Johnson's voice carried the commanding tone that had built a tech empire from nothing. "Right now, you need to rest. Thomas is bringing you to one of my properties in Tribeca. Fully furnished, completely secure, stocked with everything you and the twins will need." "I can't just hide, Dad. Marcus has lawyers. The Whitmores have connections. They'll fight me for custody, and I have nothing. No job, no money, no—" "Maya." Her father's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. "Listen to me very carefully. You are not nothing. You are my daughter. You are James Johnson's daughter. Do you understand what that means?" Maya was quiet, remembering fragments from her childhood before her mother died. Her father in business meetings, on conference calls, traveling constantly. JJ Tech Solutions. She'd known the company existed, knew it did something with software and security systems. But she'd been 12 when her mother passed, and 15 when she'd left for boarding school. By the time she met Marcus, she'd been so disconnected from her father's world that she'd never really understood its scope. "Dad, I know you're successful, but the Whitmores are old money. Connecticut royalty. They have $400 million spread across real estate, investments, and a manufacturing company that's been declining for 20 years. James interrupted. "I know because I've been watching them since the day you told me you were engaged. I know Richard Whitmore is mortgaged to his eyeballs trying to maintain that estate. I know Victoria's shopping addiction has cost them nearly $2 million in the last 5 years. I know Marcus's trust fund is contingent on staying in his parents' good graces, which is why he'll never stand up to them. Maya's breath caught. How do you know all that? Because when my daughter marries someone, I do my homework. There was a smile in his voice now. And Maya, sweetheart, here's what you need to understand. JJ Tech Solutions isn't just successful. We're the primary security and software contractor for 70% of Fortune 500 companies. We're valued at $8.6 billion. I am, as they say, stupid rich. The number didn't compute. Maya tried to process it, to reconcile the father she remembered with what he was saying. But you always lived so modestly. After Mom died, we just had the brownstone in Brooklyn. You drove that old Volvo, I lived modestly because your mother believed in giving you a normal childhood. Because I didn't want you growing up entitled and disconnected from reality. James's voice softened. After she passed, I threw myself into work. Built the company into what it is now. And every day, I wished I could share it with you. Could give you the security I'd created. But you were so determined to make your own way, and I respected that, even when you chose Marcus Whitmore. You tried to warn me. I did. But you needed to learn some lessons yourself. Thomas must have updated him, because James continued. Thomas says you're 10 minutes out. Get some rest, feed those beautiful grandbabies of mine, and we'll talk tomorrow, real talk. About what happens next. About how we make sure the Whitmores never hurt you or the twins again. Dad? Maya's voice was small. Why didn't you come to the christening? Really? The pause was long enough that Maya thought the connection had dropped. Then, because Victoria Whitmore sent me a personal note 3 weeks ago. She said my presence would be awkward given the delicate social dynamics, and that perhaps it would be better if I respected the family's wishes and stayed away. His voice hardened. She suggested that my urban background might make the other guests uncomfortable. Maya felt rage flood through her veins. She told me you didn't care. She said you'd rejected the invitation. I know what she told you. Thomas was at the christening, Maya. Not inside, but watching. I've had people watching over you for 3 years, making sure you were safe, documenting everything. James paused. Victoria Whitmore made a mistake today. She said the quiet part loud. And now we have dozens of witnesses and video evidence of her racism. She handed us ammunition she can't take back. The sedan pulled up to a building in Tribeca that Maya vaguely recognized from architecture magazines. Glass and steel, modern and imposing, with a doorman who immediately approached to help with the car seats. Welcome home, Ms. Johnson, the doorman said. Your father had everything prepared. Penthouse level, private elevator. Maya stepped into the lobby, all marble and contemporary art, and felt herself split in two. Part of her was still the frightened woman fleeing the Whitmore estate with her babies. But another part, buried under 3 years of trying to be someone she wasn't, was starting to remember who Maya Johnson really was. The penthouse was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, but also warm and lived in, with a fully equipped nursery that made the Whitmore Estates version look cold and sterile. There were photographs on the walls. Maya as a child with her parents, her mother's artwork, family history she'd tried to leave behind. A woman in her 50s was waiting in the living room, professional but warm. Ms. Johnson, I'm Patricia. Your father hired me to help with the twins for the next few weeks, or as long as you need. I'm a registered nurse and a grandmother of 4. I hope that's all right. Maya wanted to cry at the simple kindness of it. "That's perfect. Thank you." Patricia took Lily, who'd been fussing, and began expertly preparing bottles while Maya sank onto the sofa with Zoe. Through the windows, Manhattan sparkled. Her city, the place she'd left behind to play at being a Connecticut wife. Her phone buzzed with texts. "Marcus. Where are you? This is insane. Come home. Victoria. If you've taken those children across state lines without permission, you're committing a crime. Caroline. I always knew you weren't right for him." And then, from her father, "Sleep tonight. Tomorrow we begin planning. The Whitmores think they're powerful because they know which fork to use at dinner. They're about to learn what real power looks like." Maya looked at her daughters, Zoe already sleeping in her arms, Lily content with Patricia, and felt something shift inside her chest. For 3 years, she'd made herself smaller, quieter, more accommodating. She'd swallowed her pride and her heritage and her sense of self to fit into a world that never wanted her. No more. "Patricia," Maya said quietly, "do you know who my father is? What JJ Tech Solutions does?" Patricia smiled. "Everyone in certain circles knows who James Johnson is, dear. He's one of the most powerful men in America. Just keeps a low profile about it." She looked up from preparing the bottle. "The Whitmores are in for quite a shock, aren't they?" Maya smiled for the first time in hours. Yes, they are." Outside the penthouse windows, the city lights blazed like stars, and somewhere in Connecticut, in a mansion full of people who'd never seen her as anything but a problem to be managed, Marcus Whitmore was probably just realizing that his wife hadn't gone to a hotel for the night. She'd gone home, to the family who'd actually wanted her all along. And she was just getting started. Maya woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the sound of her daughters cooing in the nursery next door. For a moment, disoriented, she thought she was back at the estate. Then she saw the Manhattan skyline, the contemporary furniture, the photographs of her real family on the walls. She was home. Actually, home. Her phone showed 47 missed calls, 17 from Marcus, 23 from various Whitmore family members and their lawyers, 7 from numbers she didn't recognize. She silenced it and padded into the nursery where Patricia was already changing Lily's diaper while Zoe kicked happily in her crib. "Good morning," Patricia said with a warm smile. "These two woke up an hour ago, but I thought you could use the rest. They've been fed and are in excellent spirits." Maya gathered Zoe into her arms, breathing in that perfect baby smell. "Thank you. I don't know what I would have done without you last night." "Your father's been planning for this possibility since the day you married Marcus Whitmore," Patricia replied matter-of-factly. "He may have respected your choice, but he wasn't going to leave you vulnerable." Before Maya could respond, the doorbell chimed, an elegant sound that somehow managed to be both discreet and commanding. Patricia's expression didn't change. "That'll be your father. He texted that he'd be here at 8. Maya glanced at the clock. 8:02 a.m. Of course he was exactly on time. She carried Zoe to the door and looked through the security panel, another feature of the apartment she was just discovering. The man in the hallway looked simultaneously familiar and like a stranger. James Johnson at 58 was still imposing, 6'3", broad-shouldered, with close-cropped gray hair and the kind of presence that made people instinctively step aside. He wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than the Mercedes she'd abandoned in Connecticut. Maya opened the door. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. 3 years of silence, hurt, and stubbornness hanging between them. Then James's eyes dropped to Zoe in Maya's arms, and his entire face transformed. My God, he whispered. She looks just like your mother. Maya felt tears burning. Dad, Later. He stepped inside, closing the door with one hand, while the other reached tentatively toward Zoe. First, let me meet my granddaughters properly. They settled in the living room, Patricia bringing Lily out to join them. James held both twins with the competence of someone who'd done this before, his large hands gentle and sure. He examined their faces like they were precious artifacts, noting every feature, every expression. Zoe has your eyes, he said, and your mother's chin. Lily has the Whitmore coloring, but that's your nose, Maya, your grandmother's cheekbones. He looked up, his dark eyes intense. They're perfect, and they're yours, no matter what the Whitmores try to claim. Marcus is their father, Maya said quietly. Legally, he has rights. Marcus Whitmore is a sperm donor who stood by while his mother verbally abused his wife and daughters. James's voice was cold. Rights are earned, Maya. They're not given just because you provided half the genetic material. Patricia discreetly excused herself to the kitchen, and Maya found herself alone with her father for the first time in 3 years. The man who'd built an empire. The man who'd warned her about the Whitmores. The man she'd cut off because she'd been so sure she knew better. I'm sorry, she said. For everything. For not listening. For... Stop! James set both twins in their playmat, where they immediately grabbed for the hanging toys. We don't have time for apologies right now. What we need is strategy. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through something. Marcus filed a missing persons report on you and the twins at 6 a.m. this morning. It was dismissed within an hour. I made sure of that. But it shows how they're going to play this. Concerned father, unstable mother, postpartum issues. Maya's stomach dropped. Postpartum? I don't have postpartum depression. They don't care about truth. They care about narrative. James pulled up something on his phone and handed it to Maya. This is already circulating on Connecticut society blogs. Maya read the headline. Society wife's christening breakdown. Witnesses describe unhinged behavior at Whitmore estate. The article painted her as hysterical, emotional, making wild accusations. It quoted anonymous sources close to the family, expressing concern about her mental state, suggesting she'd been struggling since the twins' birth, hinting at substance abuse issues that didn't exist. This is character assassination, Maya breathed. This is what they do. James took his phone back. Old money families know how to control narratives. They've been doing it for generations. But they're not ready for what happens when they go after James Johnson's daughter. He pulled out a tablet and opened a folder. Here's what I know about the Whitmores. And before you ask, yes, I've been investigating them for 3 years. Call it insurance. The file was comprehensive. Financial records, business dealings, social media activity, even photographs from events. Maya saw document after document detailing the Whitmore family's declining fortune. Richard Whitmore's manufacturing company lost $12 million last year, James explained. His commercial real estate holdings are underwater. The estate is mortgaged at 80% of its value. Victoria's spending habits are legendary. She dropped $300,000 at Bergdorf Goodman last year alone. Marcus's trust fund is the only thing keeping them afloat, and that trust fund requires him to stay married and maintain the family image. So if we divorce, he loses his primary income source, which means his parents lose their financial safety net. James smiled, and it wasn't kind. But here's where it gets interesting. I started buying shares of Whitmore Industries 6 months ago through various shell corporations. As of last week, I own 34% of the company. Maya's breath caught. Why would you do that? Because I knew this day would come, eventually. James pulled up more documents. Victoria Whitmore has been sending your husband increasingly desperate messages about keeping you in line. She's been pressuring Marcus to get you to sign a post-nuptial agreement that would forfeit your rights to marital assets if you divorce. She's been planning to isolate you, control you, and eventually push you out while keeping the twins. The room spun. Maya thought about all the times Marcus had suggested she sign papers just for estate planning purposes. All the times Victoria had pushed for her to meet with the family attorneys. They were going to take my children. They were going to try. James's voice was steel. But they made a critical error. They assumed you were alone. They assumed you had no resources, no support, no power. They forgot that before you were Marcus Whitmore's wife, you were James Johnson's daughter. Patricia appeared with coffee, perfectly prepared, as if she'd known exactly when they'd need it. Maya took the cup gratefully, her hands shaking slightly. What do I do? She asked. How do I fight this? James pulled up another file. First, we document everything. I have video from the christening. Thomas had a camera in his lapel. We have audio recordings of Victoria's comments over the past 6 months. I had the estate staff install discrete monitoring systems. That's illegal? Maya said automatically. It's legal in one-party consent states. And I had your consent implicitly as the resident of the home. James's expression didn't change. I play chess, Maya, not checkers. Every move I've made has been carefully calculated and entirely legal. He pulled up the video from the christening, and Maya watched herself being publicly humiliated in high definition. But this time, she saw it differently. She saw Victoria's calculated cruelty, the way other guests reacted with shock or disapproval, the way Marcus stood frozen like a coward. This goes viral. Victoria Whitmore's social standing is destroyed, James said. Every charity board she sits on, every club she belongs to, every friendship she's cultivated, all of it evaporates when the world sees her telling a black woman that her black children need to be kept somewhere suitable to their nature. But if we release this, Marcus will be caught in the crossfire, Maya said. The twins' father. The twins' father stood by and let it happen. James's voice was implacable. He made his choice. Now he lives with the consequences. Maya looked at her daughters, playing happily on their mat, completely unaware of the war being waged over their future. I don't want them growing up thinking I destroyed their father's family out of revenge. You're not destroying anything, James replied. The Whitmores destroyed themselves the moment they chose racism over love. We're just making sure everyone knows what they really are. Maya's phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Please, Maya, let's talk like adults. The twins need both parents. Come home and we'll work this out. She showed it to her father, who snorted. Translation. Come back so we can pressure you into signing away your rights before you realize how much leverage you actually have. Another text came through, this one from an unknown number. This is Victoria Whitmore. If you don't return my grandchildren immediately, I will have you arrested for kidnapping. I have already contacted our attorneys. James took Maya's phone and typed a response. This is James Johnson. Your grandchildren are with their mother, where they belong. Any further threatening communications will be documented and used in custody proceedings. My attorneys will contact yours shortly. Have a blessed day. He hit send before Maya could stop him. Dad, Maya gasped. You can't just... I absolutely can. He handed the phone back. Maya, Listen to me carefully. These people have spent 3 years making you doubt yourself, making you feel small and powerless and grateful for their acceptance. But you were never powerless. You just forgot who you were. He stood, walking to the window overlooking the city. Your mother and I built everything from nothing. She was the artist, the heart of our company. She designed every security interface we ever created. I was the business brain. Together, we made something extraordinary. And then we made you. James turned back to her, and Maya saw tears in his eyes for the first time she could remember since her mother's funeral. When your mother died, I threw myself into work because I couldn't bear to be in a house full of her absence, he continued. I let you go to boarding school, let you build your own life, because I thought giving you independence was the same as giving you love. But I was wrong. I should have been there more. I should have fought harder to stay connected. Dad, let me finish. He moved back to the couch, sitting across from her. When you told me you were marrying Marcus Whitmore, I had him investigated. I knew within a week that he was weak, that his family was racist, that you were walking into a trap. But you were so happy, so sure, and I'd been absent for so long that I had no right to tell you how to live your life. His voice cracked, so I watched. I waited. I prepared for the day you'd need me, and I hated every moment of it. Maya felt tears streaming down her face. I should have listened. You should have had a father who'd earned the right to be listened to. James reached across and took her hand. But we're here now. And I promise you this. The Whitmores will never hurt you or those babies again. Not while I'm breathing. The buzzer sounded again. Patricia checked the security panel and turned to James with raised eyebrows. Sir, there are 3 people in the lobby claiming to be from Whitmore family attorneys. They're demanding access. James smiled, and Maya recognized that smile. It was the same one he wore in business meeting photos, right before he closed deals that destroyed competitors. Let them up, he said calmly. It's time the Whitmores learned what happens when you threaten James Johnson's family. He turned to Maya. Get the twins settled in the nursery. Patricia, stay with them. Maya, I need you to record this conversation on your phone. Don't participate, just observe and document. Can you do that? Maya nodded, gathering Zoe while Patricia took Lily. As she settled them in the nursery, she heard the elevator chime, heard authoritative voices in the foyer, heard her father's calm, measured tone responding. Gentlemen, and you are? Charles Whitmore III, senior partner at Whitmore, Crawford & Associates. We represent the Whitmore family. You're James Johnson? I am. Mr. Johnson, our clients are deeply concerned about the welfare of their grandchildren. Mrs. Whitmore, Maya, left the family estate last night with the twins without informing anyone of her destination. Her husband is frantic with worry. Maya positioned herself in the nursery doorway where she could see and record, but wasn't directly visible. Her father stood in the center of the living room, perfectly relaxed, while 3 lawyers in expensive suits faced him with varying degrees of aggressive posturing. Ms. Johnson, James said, emphasizing her maiden name, left an abusive environment with her children. She's exactly where she should be, with her father in a safe location, with full-time nursing care for the twins. Abusive? The lead attorney, Charles III, looked incredulous. Mr. Johnson, the Whitmore estate is one of the most prestigious addresses in Connecticut. The family has provided Mrs. Whitmore with every luxury, every resource. Except respect, James interrupted quietly. Except basic human dignity. accept the fundamental right to raise her children without being told they need to be kept somewhere suitable to their nature because of the color of their skin. Thus, lawyers exchanged glances. I'm not sure what you're referring to. Then let me clarify. James pulled out his tablet. I'm referring to Victoria Whitmore's pattern of racist harassment toward my daughter over the past 3 years. I'm referring to her statement yesterday, witnessed by 200 guests and captured on video, suggesting that my granddaughters, 6-month-old infants, should be segregated because of their race. He swiped through his tablet. I'm also referring to 17 documented incidents of Victoria Whitmore making racist comments about my daughter's appearance, her background, and her parenting. I'm referring to Richard Whitmore's complicity in this harassment. And I'm referring to Marcus Whitmore's consistent failure to protect his wife and children from this abuse. Charles III's expression hardened. Those are serious allegations, Mr. Johnson. Do you have proof? I have video, audio, witness statements, and my daughter's testimony. James's smile was sharp. I also have the christening video already going viral on social media, currently at 2.3 million views and counting. The court of public opinion is already rendering its verdict. One of the younger lawyers pulled out his phone, typing frantically. His face went pale. Sir, he's right. It's everywhere. #Whitmore. Racism is trending on Twitter. The video has been picked up by TMZ, page 6. It's on Good Morning America's homepage. Maya felt her stomach lurch. She'd known her father was powerful, but she hadn't realized he could orchestrate something like this overnight. Charles III recovered quickly. Regardless of these allegations, which we dispute, Marcus Whitmore is the father of those children. He has parental rights. If Ms. Johnson doesn't return the children immediately, we'll file for emergency custody. On what grounds? James asked pleasantly. On the grounds that she's emotionally unstable, possibly suffering from postpartum psychosis, and has kidnapped her children across state lines without the father's permission. Interesting theory. James pulled up more documents on his tablet. Let's examine that. First, Ms. Johnson is the primary caregiver. She's been exclusively caring for the twins since their birth. Marcus Whitmore works 60-hour weeks and has changed approximately 12 diapers in 6 months. I have testimony from the estate staff confirming this. How did you... Charles started. Second, Ms. Johnson has no history of mental health issues. She has a registered nurse here who can testify to her sound judgment and excellent parenting. She made the logical decision to remove her children from an environment where they were being subjected to racism. James moved closer to the lawyers, and despite being outnumbered, he somehow made them seem small. Third, and most importantly, gentlemen, there is no kidnapping. Ms. Johnson is the mother. She has every right to take her children anywhere she chooses. Marcus Whitmore has not filed for divorce, has not filed for custody, has no court order preventing her from leaving Connecticut. So by what legal mechanism exactly are you threatening her? The silence stretched. Maya could see the lawyers recalculating, realizing they'd walked into a trap. Furthermore, James continued, if Marcus Whitmore wants to see his daughters, he's welcome to visit. Alone, supervised, and with behavior that demonstrates he's put his children's welfare above his parents' racism. But if the Whitmores think they can bully my daughter into returning to an abusive situation, they're about to learn a very expensive lesson about who they're dealing with. Mr. Johnson, Charles III said carefully, the Whitmore family is prepared to fight this with every resource available to them. Are they? James pulled up another file. Because I own 34% of Whitmore Industries as of last week. I could force a board vote that would remove Richard Whitmore as CEO tomorrow. I could call in the loans on the estate. Did you know I bought the mortgage through a subsidiary 6 months ago? I could destroy the family's social standing with one press release about Victoria's racism. So please tell me more about the resources available to them. The blood drained from Charles III's face. You've been planning this. I've been protecting my daughter, James corrected. There's a difference. Everything I've done has been legal, strategic, and in preparation for exactly this moment, when the Whitmores would show their true colors and try to steal my grandchildren. He walked to the door and opened it. Now, gentlemen, unless you have actual legal papers, and I mean signed by a judge, not just threatening letters, I suggest you leave. And tell your clients that if they want any relationship with those twins, they need to start by issuing a public apology to my daughter, attending intensive anti-racism training, and proving through actions, not words, that they've changed. The Whitmores will never, one of the younger lawyers started. Then the Whitmores will never see their grandchildren again, James finished. Their choice. Now get out. The lawyers left with considerably less confidence than they'd arrived with. As soon as the elevator doors closed, James's shoulders sagged slightly. He turned to find Maya standing in the nursery doorway, phone still recording. Did you get all that? He asked. Every word. Maya's voice shook. Dad, you bought their mortgage? You own 1/3 of their company? I told you I play chess. James moved to the nursery, looking at the sleeping twins. And every piece has been in position for months, waiting for them to make the wrong move. But what if Marcus really does file for custody? What if a judge sides with him? James pulled up one more file on his tablet. Then we present this. Marcus Whitmore's text messages with Caroline Pierce, his ex-fiancée, for the past 6 months, including messages sent while you were in labor, while you were breastfeeding, while you were exhausted and alone with newborn twins. Maya felt sick. He's been texting her this whole time? Not just texting. Meeting her for coffee. Having long phone conversations. Nothing overtly sexual, but emotionally intimate enough to show he's been cultivating a relationship with another woman while his wife struggled with new motherhood. James's expression was grim. I'm sorry, Maya. But better you know now than be blindsided in court. Maya thought about all the times Marcus had worked late, all the times he'd been on his phone when she'd needed help with the twins, all the times he'd seemed distant and distracted. She'd blamed herself, thought she wasn't interesting enough anymore, wasn't thin enough after pregnancy, wasn't enough. He was just waiting for me to fail, she said quietly. Waiting for me to crack so he could justify leaving me for her. Probably, James said. But he underestimated you. And he catastrophically underestimated who your father is and what he's willing to do to protect his family. Patricia appeared with fresh coffee and what looked like breakfast pastries from a bakery that probably cost more than most people's grocery bills. The twins will sleep for another hour or so, she reported. Might I suggest you both eat something? Long battles require fuel. They settled at the dining table, and Maya found herself ravenous despite everything. The pastries were perfect, the coffee even better, and for a few minutes, they ate in silence while sunlight streamed through the windows and Manhattan hummed to life below them. What happens now? Maya finally asked. James pulled out a legal pad, because of course he still used paper for strategy, and began sketching out a plan. Now we control the narrative. I have a PR team drafting a statement from you about leaving an abusive situation. We'll release the christening video in full context. We'll document Marcus's relationship with Caroline. We'll make it clear that you're not hiding. You're protecting your children. And then? Then we wait for them to make the next move. File for divorce or try for custody. Either way, we're ready. James looked up from his notes. But Maya, I need to know something. What do you want from this? Not what you think you should want. Not what's best for the twins. What do you want? Maya looked at her father, really looked at him, seeing past the powerful businessman to the man who'd lost his wife too young, who'd tried to give his daughter independence and ended up pushing her away, who'd spent 3 years watching her suffer from a distance because she'd asked him to. I want my daughters to grow up knowing they're loved for exactly who they are, she said. I want them to have a relationship with their father if he can prove he deserves one. I want them to never doubt their worth because of their skin color or their heritage. She paused. And I want Victoria Whitmore to understand that there are consequences for racism. James smiled. Then that's exactly what we'll do. Maya's phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. I know you're with your father. I know what he's threatening. Please, Maya, for the sake of our daughters, let's not destroy each other. Let's talk. Just you and me, tomorrow. Neutral location. She showed it to James, who read it carefully. He's scared. The lawyers must have reported back. He's realizing how much trouble he's in. Should I meet with him? That's your choice. But if you do, you meet in public, you record the conversation, and you don't go alone. James met her eyes. Maya, I know you loved him. Maybe part of you still does. But love isn't enough if it's not backed up by respect, by action, by courage. Marcus Whitmore had 3 years to prove he could stand up for you. He failed every time. Maya thought about the man she'd married. Charming, handsome, sweet in private. Then she thought about the man who'd let his mother call her daughters unsuitable, who'd texted his ex-fiancée while Maya was alone with newborn twins, who'd chosen his inheritance over his family every single time it mattered. I'll meet with him, she decided. One last time, to see if there's anything worth saving. James nodded slowly. Okay, but we do it my way. Public location, security nearby, everything documented. And Maya. He reached across and took her hand. No matter what he says, no matter what he promises, remember this. You don't need him. You never did. You're James Johnson's daughter. And that means you have everything you need right here. For the first time in 3 years, Maya believed it.